Hey, what's up guys? I'm Jay Wood. I am one of the audio engineers here at Highlands, and today we are going to take a look at how I personally tackle drum gates. So we're going to dive right in. We're working in Pro Tools. Put my ear in so I can hear. Hopefully I don't start yelling. So what we've done, we've grabbed a couple different drum grooves so far today. We have some flow grooves like this. Typical pastor on stage moment, and then we have some big chorus drums, like a drummer's in the middle of a big chorus. We have some tight hat work, a drummer who might be playing the fast verse of a song. We have some open hat work, and we also have like a mega build with some toms. So we have a variety of different grooves to work on and try our gates out. We'll see how they stack up. So let's go ahead and go to work. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to loop a song that's got a kick going for us. I think that tom build is a good example. So I'm going to loop this. So I know we're in Pro Tools, but basically this is the same thing as having a drummer on stage playing constantly for you. The gates that we're going to be using are the same ones that are on a lot of our Avid consoles. This is the DigiGate. So this should look really familiar to you, and you will have one of these on your console if you're on an Avid Venue. If you're not on a Venue, you'll probably be on a Yamaha or something similar. And so even though the gate itself may not look the same, you're going to see a lot of the same parameters like a threshold, a range, a ratio, attack, release, hold. The majority of these parameters will be here. So let's stop for a second. Let's check out what we've got going on. We have kick, snare top, snare bottom, hats, tom 1, tom 2, and overheads. So let's get to work. Let's play this. So I'm going to solo my kick. I like to do one drum at a time. So the kick doesn't sound too bad. I've got a little bit of EQ on it. Here's what it sounds like without an EQ. So it's like, it's not terrible. So let's open up our gate. Let's take it off of bypass. So these settings are just what this plugin does out of the box. We have not done anything to this yet. So let's start making this sound good. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my attack, turn it all the way fast. My release, I'll take it to about a half a second or so. Remember, we're working in milliseconds here, so 500 milliseconds is a half a second. 1,000 milliseconds is a second. So let's go to about a half a second. I'm going to turn my hold all the way off. I'm going to make a ratio very extreme, so 100 to 1, or as steep as it'll go on your particular setting. So let's take the range all the way down to where it's closing off the maximum amount when the gate is closed. Now let's play with our threshold. So if we take our threshold all the way up, it's never going to open for the drum. If we take our threshold all the way down, it's pretty much open all the time. These gates give you a really good indicator over here of where your threshold is at with this arrow right beside the signal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this threshold in this extreme sensitivity like this to where it's just opening for the kick and no more. So if you look over here, you see this little dot popping around. That's kind of like our kick level, and you can see it just popping out here past the threshold. So things are feeling okay at the moment. That's pretty good right there. So let's tinker with our release a little bit. So let's go way too fast with it. So yeah, we've pretty much destroyed the kick now. It doesn't even sound like a drum. So let's start to ease that release up until it starts to sound like a drum again. A little quick. So it's starting to sound like a drum. That's pretty decent. So let's work with that. So let's add a little grace back into this sensitivity. Right now it's very extreme, and if the kick were not to get any louder than this point, we would completely lose it. So with the ratio, we're going to ease it back a little bit. Let's go to like 2. You can hear the toms start to break through a little bit once I get lower with this ratio. So let's tighten it up a little bit now. So I'm going to camp out right there. Right around 3 to 1 is where I start getting most of the kick and not a lot of the toms. Our gate's really tight, got a lot of reduction, but the kick is still coming through great. So let's bypass this gate for a second. Let's say everything else coming through. Let's turn the gate back on. So we're getting a pretty good result at the moment. Now a little side note about gates, and that is typically if you have your attack extremely fast, like as fast as it will go, the opening of the gate will sound a little funny because it is ridiculously fast. So what I've found is that a sweet spot for attack on gates is usually right under a second, or a millisecond. I'm sorry, not a second, a millisecond. So that's right around where we're going to be there. So let's call that one done. Let's close this, unsolo. So we're one step closer to where we want to be. So if you'll notice, I didn't tell you this earlier, but the hi-hat and the overheads, all my cymbal mics are actually muted right now. So all the cymbals that you're hearing and the rest of the kit, that's all bleed. That's what we're trying to get rid of. I'm going to go to another sample of drums here. Let's find a chorus. Let me play this. You hear all those cymbals? So that's coming through our different drum mics. That's why we are going to attack these gates. So let's mute off all these drum mics, except the kick. So our kick gate is working well for us. That's what we want. Let's open up the snare now. That is a lot of cymbals. So let's work on the gate for the snare now. Let's open this up, turn it off a bypass. So once again, this is straight out of the box. It's gating obviously, but it's not really doing what we want it to do. So let's solo this snare mic, and let's go to work. So the same drill, attack all the way fast. You know what, we'll go ahead and set it on a millisecond, like we talked about a second ago. For the sweet spot of the attack time, set our release to about half a second, so we can clearly hear when it's opening. Get rid of our hold, extreme ratio, the range all the way down. So let's go too far in both directions with this threshold. So that's the threshold all the way down, things constantly open. It's obviously not what we want. Let's go too far the other way. Now we have no snare. So let's find the sweet spot. It's feeling pretty good. Let's work with that. So snare is a little different to me. I like to add a little bit of a hold to the snare. It allows some of the body of the drum to come back through just a little bit. So let's see what that would do. So let's add the hold. Let's go too far. You see what's happening there? Now that's obviously too much. The drum sounds ridiculous. Let's turn that hold down. Get it a little more realistic till the guts of the drum are there, but it cuts off after that. That's about what I'm looking for. Like the gutsy kind of ring of the drum comes through just a little bit. So now let's tailor our release a little bit. Let's go too far. So we're obviously too far with the release now. Let's go back the other way. So what you kind of do here, this is the trick. So the trick is taking the trash that's in the drum, all those cymbals and everything, and use the release to make that trash become part of the tail of the snare sound. And kind of trick people into thinking you have this super good sounding snare when really what they're hearing is the trash trailing off. And so you're trying to adjust the release until it sounds natural. And I think we're almost there. I think we're good enough to start moving on with other parameters in our gate. So let's go to the ratio. Let's start using the ratio back to get some grace. Maybe we'll get some ghost hits. So if we go too far, we start to get all the trash back. Let's tighten it up a little bit. I think that's okay. Let's leave that right there. Let's work with that. Let's call that done. And so a little trick I like to do sometimes. Once I get one done, I'll copy it to another thing. Let's leave our snare bottom ungated. So I'm not gonna gate snare bottom. Let's move ahead. So now we have kick and snare that we're hearing, and we have gates on both of them. Things are sounding pretty tight. So let's turn off the gates and see what it was like without the gates. A lot of cymbals. Turn the gates back on. All right, they're working pretty good for us. Now you may think, wow, that kit sounds really choppy and not very pleasant. Well, now we get to use our overheads and hi-hat mics to kind of help us out and add the realisticness, if that's a word, back to the kit. So check this out. I'm going to turn these overheads all the way down, unmute them, and ease them back in. So you really don't even notice the artifacts from the gates anymore. Things sound pretty tight, and I am fully in control of how much or how little cymbals I have in this mix. Turn them way down if I want. Turn them back up. So these kind of cover up any leftovers that the gates may not have dealt with. So now let's unmute the snare bottom. So that also adds a little bit of natural sound back to my snare also, because sometimes it's just the nature of things. When you're gating, things get a little bit choppy. Then you use your ungated portions of things like overheads and snare bottom to add the life back. So let's add the snare bottom. You see what I'm saying there? So that's kind of a good thing. Add the kick in, cymbals. It's a pretty good sounding kit. All right, now, so let's move on to the rest of our mics. We've got toms to work on, and those are going to be the last two gates we're going to work on. So let's mute everything. Let's open up tom 1. It is overwhelmed by cymbals. So let's go to work. Let's open up the gate here. Let's turn it off a bypass. And you know what we need to do? We need to go to a groove where he's actually playing the toms. So let's stop this for a second, and we'll go to this tom build groove. And I'll go unmute everything else so you get a little bit of a snapshot of what this groove actually sounds like. Turn all the gates off. So this is a typical flow groove. Say, you know, we're in a song, there's a build happening or something like that. You'll probably hear this groove a lot. So now that you know what the groove sounds like, let's turn our gates back on the things we wanted them on. Let's solo tom 1. And let's go to work. So I believe that's what we have open here. Yeah, okay, this is the gate we have open. Let's unbypass, so our gate's on. And it's very, very gated, that is for sure. So let's do what we do. Take our range all the way, ratio all the way, attack to about a second, millisecond. I keep doing that, I keep saying a second. Okay, release. We'll go all the way to about a half a second. Hold, no hold. And let's play with the threshold. So this is going to sound really funny for a little bit. Very short attack of a tom. But that's fine. We're isolating it. We're basically using these settings to isolate the hit of the drum that we're looking for, because it's not the sustain of the drum that we want to trigger our gates. It's the transient or the very quick attack of the stick hitting the drum that we want to open these gates. So that's what we've isolated now. So let's play with the release a little bit. And let's add some life back to this tom. Maybe a little more. Maybe a little more. You know what? That release just isn't doing the trick. So that's why they give you hold on some gates. So let's mess with this hold a little bit. Let's add a little bit to this tom and see if it adds some life back. Because it'll keep the gate open for a moment before it moves on to the release stage of the gate. So now we're getting somewhere. Let's adjust that release a little more longer. Maybe hold down a little bit. So I think that's workable. It's not amazing, but it's workable. It's better than all the cymbals. So let's play with the ratio. Let's turn it down to get some of our grace and sensitivity back. Let's go too far with it. So it's not doing anything at the moment because the ratio is all the way down. Let's ease back into this ratio. So I'm getting that snare. That snare is opening my gate. I'm not loving that. I think about the only way for me to fix that is to tighten up my threshold a little bit. So let's go a little higher until we start losing the snare. I think it's about as far as I can go. If I go much more, I'm going to start losing my tom. We'll just have to live with that. Hey, sometimes you got to live with it. So that's pretty good. Now to cheat a little bit, since the toms are pretty similar in the way they respond time-wise, let's take this gate that we just worked on. And on your console, you would basically right-click this plugin or the icon of the plugin in your plugin list. You could hit copy settings and then paste them to another plugin. Or if you're on your own board strip, you could do the same thing. For me in Pro Tools, it looks a little different, so don't worry about exactly how this looks. But I'm going to right-click. I'm not going to right-click. I'm going to go here, preset, copy settings. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste. So long story short, I just took what I did for Tom 1 gate and I pasted it to Tom 2 gate. So let's unmute. Let's just see how it translated. The solo Tom 2. Let's turn the gate off, see what he's actually doing. So he's riding that tom quite a bit. So we're going to need to work on this to let that riding of the tom actually come through. So let's turn the gate back on. So it's doing a pretty good job. I might lower the threshold just a little bit. Because you can see on our graphic here that the actual hits of the drum are right at the threshold. When in reality, I want them to surpass the threshold just a little bit. So this is pretty good. Let's adjust that ratio. Let's relax it a little bit. That's pretty good. Okay, so things were sounding pretty good. I think we're just about done. About all there is left for us to do is just to go back and listen to some of the other types of grooves to make sure that things are translating properly to different types of grooves. You know, maybe some that have more cymbals than others, things like that. So let's dive in. Let's take a look. So in Pro Tools, I'm going to go over to our first groove, our flow groove. And let's just hit play. Let's listen to what's happening. I hear that tom 2. That's good. Honestly, things are feeling pretty good. I have no complaints there. So let's go to a big chorus with a lot of cymbals and let's take a listen. I don't really have any complaints there. I even hear ghost hits on the snare, which is nice. Just to see exactly what our gates are doing and not doing, let's mute out the cymbal mics. Pretty clean. That's what we want. I'm pretty sure what other cymbals we have are coming through this snare bottom mic, which is not gated. Let's check it out. For the most part, yes. That's good. Of course, when we add in our cymbal mics, everything gets natural. This is what we're looking for. Let's try out another groove. Let's go to these fast hi-hats. Things are pretty good. Next groove, open hats. This is usually a tricky one for gates. It's pretty good. Let's just see what the gates are doing. Let's cut out the cymbal mics. It's pretty natural. Turn off the snare bottom. You can hear that there's definitely a gate on that snare. But that's because we've isolated it like this. When we put in our other mics, everything gets good. So just for fun, let's turn off these cymbal mics one more time, and then let's bypass all the gates. So let's see what a difference that we've made. It's quite the difference. We don't even need overheads right now. Let's put those gates back in. So much cleaner. Add our cymbal mics back, and that's what we want. And then we'll go to the last groove just for fun, the tom groove. Toms sound natural. Let's kill the overheads again. Let's see if our toms really sound natural without the help of the overheads. Sound pretty good. Let's bring in the overheads. Get the cymbal work back. One more time, we'll go to our open hats groove. All right. Well, there you have it. That was pretty simple, pretty quick, pretty painless, and that is how I attack drum gates for our settings here at Highlands for our campuses. The one note that I would have, and that would be to not pay too much attention to the numbers and the values of the things that I was just working on. What I mainly want you to grasp from this are the principles. So use your ears. If I were going to take a guess at what would happen with the numbers at your location, the numbers are probably going to be a little faster. Your release is probably going to be a little faster because you're in an auditorium, so things are naturally going to last a little bit longer in an auditorium because of just the natural verb of the room. So yeah, don't pay too much attention to the numbers of what I was just doing. Use your ears, get out there and give this a shot and see how it goes for you. See you guys later.